on the call. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Jean, are you on? I see Jean is logging in, so she should be on any second. Anyway, thanks for joining us for the Inner Circle 2017 program. For a lot of you folks, obviously the fact that I'm not hearing any background noise means I've got a lot of old pros on the line here, unlike the last 2 days with a bunch of newbies who didn't know how to mute their phone. We're going to run through the presentation. We're going to try to keep it as quick as we can. If you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat box. However, I will answer them after the fact. We'll send out an email with each of the answers out to you after. Jean, are you on? She's still not on. Well, I'm going to get started without her then. One of the keys as 2017 approaches, when it comes to Inner Circle, a program that has over the last couple of years kind of built up and been a little bit more robust and broader than it has been in the past. One of the things that we really wanted to stress in 2017 was continuity. As newsrooms have been in flux for the last year in terms of the buyouts and many other things that have happened, editors and reporters shuffling around. We really wanted to keep the program as consistent as possible so that there weren't too many changes coming along or down the pike too quickly. I know that over the last couple of years, that's been something that we've had a little bit of trouble with. Folks not understanding all the initiatives exactly maybe the way they should have, or things that had changed from year to year in big chunks. Hopefully that's not the case, as you'll see in just a minute with 2017. We have tweaked some pieces, we have added a few little wrinkles, but for the most part, this is a pretty consistent program to what you had last year. Jean, if you're on the call yet, are you?
I am.
There she is. I'm going to have Jean talk you through the focus on our goals, because this is something that's a pretty important point from Bill.
Right. So for one of the things that a lot of times people say, why Inner Circle, really? And I think that most importantly for us is that Inner Circle is a way for us to kind of see what you guys are doing, really take a good look at what you guys are doing, and that Inner Circle is a reflection of our goals. And so when Bill came on board, he articulated those goals very clearly, and you're going to be hearing a lot more about them, I'm sure. But his main goals, do journalism with impact and embrace our future, really are reflected in this program. He's really interested in people getting out there in their communities, learning more about their communities, making sure that their priorities fit with those communities, and especially that we're doing the big news. And one of the things you're going to see in this program, and if you've already started checking it out, you'll know this, but the in-depth news category has changed. And instead of the daily enterprise, which we really emphasized before, and it's very important to keep doing that, of course, and planning, really strong centerpieces and strong lead stories every day, the program has a reduced frequency for you guys. So instead of looking at a certain number of days a week, we're really looking for those weekend packages that are strong and encouraging people to be planning for those, because those are the stories that have a lot of impact in your community. And then in terms of embracing the future, we just really want people to be creative when it comes to those digital tools, and creative in the way that they approach this program. So really make this yours. Communicate with us early, though. We always want to know. We don't want to know, as we're evaluating and looking at something and scratching our heads going, I don't even understand this, how this works. So just, Tim and I are really approachable, and reach out to us with your plans, and just, to make sure that we're not, wondering later what was going on or something like that. So, yes, and I think Tim just put up a new thing to get me to stop talking. Continued audience growth. Audience growth is still very important. A lot of you heard about that if you were at our editors' conference in April. And, we're just looking at really engaging with our audience online, but also, our communities in person, too.
And this doesn't impact this group, but we also tried to continue helping smaller newsrooms. We pared down the program, although really for you as well, even though there are some pieces in the larger newsrooms that you have to add, we really have tried to pare it down as well. And by the way, Jean brings up a great point. I mean, this really is not supposed to be a punitive program. I mean, this is all about best practices, sharing what's working in one newsroom, those types of things. And so the more of that we do, there's nothing worse than somebody who approaches us at the end of a quarter or after they've submitted their form and then says, wait, does this meet this category? We'd love to have that conversation up front and maybe even offer you some suggestions. Hey, someone in this community is doing it really well already. If you'd want to check in with them, or I can send you a package of stuff that they've already done. So she brings up a great point. Just be as upfront and communicate as much as you possibly can with us. Okay, I'm going to have you run through the changes, Jean, as you already started on some of them.
Yes, okay. One of the things, and I'm sure that Tim probably mentioned this already, but we did work with a group of editors at Gatehouse representing every size newspaper, and from their feedback, we really, adjusted the program, and so, hopefully this does reflect you. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but so, as I said before, in-depth news has been replaced by something called enterprise journalism. I mean, enterprise, just that we really want to emphasize that this is not, it's not just about a long story. I mean, it's really about something that is meaningful to your readers that, might spring off of a beat, or it might spring off of some work that somebody's doing, of course, but that it's not just it's not just a reaction. It's really more of an informed response. So with that, we're going to say that, with those big weekend packages, we're expecting some sort of digital layer that goes with it. You guys really, I think at this level, you guys are doing that already, but just to say, digital is a really important part of this. And then also, we'll go into this in more detail, but there are 6 what we call better journalism tenets, but again, it's very much in line with what you guys are already doing, but we'll run through a list of things that we would want this to focus on. So you'll just get a feel for the fact that we want something that has an impact on readers, a true impact on readers. Facebook, too, has changed, and this is really in response to Facebook's algorithm changes. One of the things that we've learned is that, you guys probably have heard this too, is that Facebook is, it really looks for posts with engagement and shows that to more people. So by having quantity expectations, that doesn't, especially the higher ones for the bigger papers, that doesn't always help us, because if you're putting a bunch of stuff up there because you're like, I gotta do this inner circle thing, it's some of those posts, maybe, half of those posts are fantastic, but half of them aren't. The half that aren't are going to be like dragging you down, and we just don't want to be in the position of dragging you down. We want this to be something that really works for engagement, especially on Facebook. So one of the things we're doing there is looking more at quality instead of quantity, and we'll talk more about what that means to us. We still have to have ways of monitoring it and evaluating it, but I think hopefully that'll be really helpful to you guys. Newsrooms are also going to be responsible for alternative story forms. All this really does is take the category that was lists and quizzes last year, and it expands the lists, which are an alternative story form, to include other forms as well. So more due to your ASF. So we'll talk more about that. And LinkedIn is not going to be a part of the social media selection anymore. I don't think anybody was really using it anyway, so I don't think that's going to be a huge deal. Twitter for reporters has been eliminated, so we won't be judging that anymore. That's not to say that we think, Twitter is still really valuable for news folks, and Penny just wrote a post about that, about Columbus, and the fact that Ohio State was seeing huge traffic, that Columbus was seeing big traffic off of Twitter on breaking news with that Ohio State attack. So still obviously really important. We're just not going to measure that anymore for Inner Circle. And then community engagement has been adjusted some, and we'll talk about that later in the book.
Okay, well, like Jean said, we really tried to listen to all the various editors that we had on our Editors Council. As I've said before to folks, I'm just a traffic cop. I'm not the lawmaker. You are the lawmakers, the folks who are involved in the Editors Council, the folks who are bringing us ideas for Inner Circle on a consistent basis. And we've listened. And so this year, newsrooms are a little overwhelmed. We've pared back some of the things like Twitter, like Jean had said. We realize the investment on return might not be, it's still important, but might not be as great as like quality Facebook posts. So we want to make sure that you're focusing on the things that are the most important for your newsroom. We do want you to increase that digital presence, which is why certain things like digital win numbers and other pieces are increasing. These are very important pieces to our future. And if you want to be a part of that Editors Council, we would love to have you. We'd love to talk more about the program. If there's something you don't understand fully, please feel free to reach out to either of us. We have these talks all the time. I have folks who are constantly asking me if a certain piece would meet a requirement, or if they have suggestions for ways they could meet something. I usually pair them up with an editor who I know is doing well at that category. So please feel free to reach out to either of us. And if you'd like to be on the Editors Council, go ahead and reach out as well. We'll make sure to get you on that for next year. And if you'd like to look at the handbook, if you haven't seen it already, most of you probably have. We have now updated the Inner Circle handbook at gatehousenewsroom.com. So if you go in the bottom right-hand corner, that is now the 2017 Inner Circle handbook. So if you have any questions or concerns, you can go right there or reach out to either one of us. Like I said, in terms of the paring down of the program and trying to focus and help newsrooms, if you look just a couple of years ago, 23 and ups, we had 15 requirements. We had added things. We were trying new things. We were really trying to make a huge impact. Well, we realized that that's not all manageable. So we want you to focus on a few more things, or the editors and the Editors Council, I should say, want you to focus on a few more things. So now those expectations are down to just 8. We'll walk through all of them. And in fact, if you look at 23 through 29, the video number is the same. Enterprise News is now just 1 per week. As Gene said, we're really looking at those dynamic centerpiece packages for Sundays or for the weekend. ASFs will be 8 per quarter. We'll talk a little more about those in just a couple of minutes. Data journalism is the same. Facebook is just quality posts every day, and we'll talk about that in a sec as well. Social media the same, 3 per week. Digital win tools at this level, 2 per week. And then community outreach, that stays the same. When you jump up to 30 through 49, now we're talking about 20 videos per week. Same with Enterprise News, same with ASFs, data journalism, Facebook. Your social media, however, jumps up. You're now at 5 per week. Digital win tools are at 3 per week. This is something you should be doing on a consistent basis. So hopefully now we're at a point where 3 per week is not something that's unmanageable. And then in the biggest of our newsrooms, 50 and up, you're talking about 25 news videos per week. Also, the other number that is a little different there, ASFs are 5 per week, social media is 5 per week, and digital win tools are now up to 4 per week. So there is quite a bit in the program. However, we're narrowing the focus to specific things. And like it was in the past, you can still miss a couple things, or one thing. You can either miss Facebook or social media selections and pass. However, if you fail in-depth news video, ASFs, digital win tools, community outreach, or data journalism, you automatically don't make the qualification. Now, I'll have Gene talk a little about staff size. They have changed quite a bit, our staffs over the last year or so, just to remind you what that means.
Right. So determining staff size, we do get a lot of questions, and please, again, feel free to reach out, especially closer to when we have our evaluations. If you have, any confusion about what's counted in terms of staff size, you can get into the right category. Make sure that you're in the right category. But what we count in terms of full-time employees, it's just everybody in your newsroom who contributes to the editorial project. That includes editors, photographers, sports people. A lot of times we get questions about that because this includes sports. It absolutely does. Newsroom assistants and everything. What we're not counting, this is changed from last year, so it's not anything new this year, is designers. Just simply because we do have some newsrooms that still have designers in-house. We have some that don't, and it just seemed weird that, that some of them were being pushed into a higher category because of that. So that change is, continuing. We obviously don't count anybody who is like on the revenue side, like ad reps or people who handle classifieds and things like that. As far as freelancers, we don't count them. But if you do have part-time employees, just basically add up their hours and just see. I mean, if they're adding up to 2 or 3 positions, you're counting those. But they don't individually count. Just depending on how many hours they have. Open positions, that's always a big question too, and I know a lot of us do hold on to those. If you lose the position at the end of the quarter, count that as a person because you had that resource. If you have an opening that you're not sure if it's ever going to be filled, don't count that. That's not something that's helping you to achieve these. So I hope that's clear, but if you have any questions, let us know.
And by the way, somebody asked earlier in the week if it's a half. If you come up to a half, do you fall into a different category or not, up or down? We would round down in any case. So if you have 22 and a half employees, you'd be under 23. But if you had 23 and a half, you'd be in that 23 through 29. So let's get into the program. Most of you know many of these pieces, but we'll walk through it pretty quickly to get you back to work. Video, the weekly expectations, 14, 20, and 25, as I said before. Why is this important? Most of you know this already. Critical to our strategy moving forward. As mobile audience grows, which it continues to grow, this becomes an even more integral piece of what we're doing. And hopefully through Tout, you now have a better tool. I know there have been glitches, but you have a better tool to handle this. I know that some of our smallest newsrooms are still doing a really wonderful job posting a ton of videos because they can. I will tell you that the numbers that we get for video now come automatically from Tout. So in the past, Gene and myself and Carly and Lizzie and whomever else, John Crouch, would literally go through your bucket and manually count all the videos. And if you were close on a number, we sometimes would say, yeah, they came within one for this month. Well, that's no longer the case. These numbers automatically come right from Tout. Maria asking a question, do Facebook Live videos count toward this total, or is it only Tout? It is only Tout videos. Facebook Live counts as a digital win tool and not as a video. So that's a good question to ask up front. Thank you, Maria. In terms of shooting video, these are obviously via Tout. Those are quick hitters. If you have some long form or high production stuff, you want to use your traditional cameras. Most of you know all of this already. You're looking for emotion. You're looking for some kind of motion. This is a great video from a tiny newsroom, the Destin Log, which just has one or two folks, and there was a plane crash. They got a great video. What are some of the things that you should shoot? If you have people hanging from yoga swings in the Poconos, that absolutely sounds like a video I would watch. Crime-related, sports, weather, especially weather videos do well. Construction project updates, that's a great one that folks don't do enough of. And of course, anything with sports is good as well in terms of video. And what we're looking for in terms of our checklist, it's that straight number. There are things that we have added quality to over quantity. A video is not yet one of them. So we get that number from Tout. We're not looking at how long the video is, what kind of production value went into it. I wish there were a chance, and hopefully in the near future there will be, but that's just not part of the program just yet. So we're just taking a straight number and moving forward from there. That's how we're looking at that. And then on to Facebook with Gene.
Oh, actually, just backing up one little step on video, one of the things we really want to encourage people to do is to look at your top stories and make sure that they have video with them. You probably have noticed if you're getting Penny Burden's weekly updates on how people are doing, she's really looking at that, like looking at whether top stories have a video matched up with it. Sometimes you're not at breaking news, so you couldn't get live video there or something. But one of the things we've noticed is that those video layers are really viewed a lot. People really value that. So even if it's just a quick video with a reporter who's covering the story, just to say, this is what we know right now, or something like that, or this is what we're exploring, or these are some questions we still have. I mean, something that adds a little bit of information is great, but man, people really will look at those videos. So make sure your top stories have some sort of video with it.
And by the way, Gene, you bring up a good point. We talked about this yesterday. I've had multiple newsrooms who've talked about the fact that they now shoot video, use Tout to send it up on the web or have it for themselves, or Facebook Live, and then use that as their recording device when they get back to the office and write that long, regular story. So try to work it into your workflow too. This doesn't necessarily have to be something that's just an add-on or more work to your daily work schedule.
Right. So I'm sorry, I didn't want to prolong video anymore, but one of the other, the changes that we've talked about a little bit so far is Facebook. So with Facebook, instead of saying some of you have to do, 20 posts a day or something like that, what we're saying is every day, be consistent. I wouldn't necessarily drop back a lot unless you're seeing that certain posts, if you were inflating the number of posts on Facebook to meet Inner Circle, and not all of them were strong posts, I would definitely take a look at those. But we do get a ton of traffic, obviously, from Facebook. You guys probably all know that from looking at your analytics. But so I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, good, we don't have to do Facebook. It's like, well, shoot, man, that would just be, shooting ourselves in the foot or whatever. So make sure you're still doing Facebook, at a good clip, and giving readers a lot of choices there. The goal of Facebook, obviously, is to engage with readers. Clearly, we love the referral traffic. It's great, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But we also really want everybody, to be checking out what's going on in comments, making sure you have a workflow around that so that we can really learn from our readers. And, that's about it then. And then also making sure that you know when people are on Facebook so that you can have your most important stuff up when people's eyes are on it. We're sitting around at home, we're watching a game on TV or a show or something like that, and we always have our phones out. So a lot of times on Facebook, just make sure you're getting your posts up when people are most likely to see them too. And so for what we're going to be looking for, this does change for this year, so we'll go through that. Just making sure that you post every day. Sometimes it's not convenient to post on weekends, but man, that's when people are on, so make sure that we have good posts on weekends. Posts must be generated manually, so they'll see. I think everybody's doing that now, but just remember that. They can be scheduled, but, we just don't want it taking a feed because it doesn't get to engagement at all. Newsrooms should be running a Facebook business page. Now, the profile, I think you guys are all set on that. 90% of posts, this is where we're going to get into some sort of quality, but it's still something that we can measure. But 90% of posts must include video or photo. So native video, Facebook Live works too, and or a photo. And the reason is that as people are scrolling through Facebook, they're much more likely to stop on something with an image. We totally get the fact that sometimes you're going to have breaking news you just want to get up. You don't have anything with it yet. That's why it doesn't have to be 100%, but making sure that everything that's going up there that's not in that breaking news category has some sort of image with it. Also, another best practice, make sure that your status update or that post text does not repeat the headlines. That's just, we wouldn't do that in print where we would have a subhead and a main head that have the exact same words. I mean, just use that space to really draw people in, maybe a quote or maybe another observation from the story, but use that wisely. And then, of course, all posts must include post text. So these are pretty basic best practices, but we're going to be looking at that instead of sheer numbers for Facebook.
And when you look at the analytics, and I went over to Sherry Horton earlier this week and asked her about last month. So what did we do as a company in November of 2016 through social media? As a company, every single news gathering organization in Gatehouse, there's a ton of them, over 400, 91% of our referral traffic came from Facebook. So that's why it's so imperative that you make them good posts, that you make them quality posts, you include that photo, you have something that's engaging in terms of your headline. And out of that, just last month, 23% of all traffic came from social media. As Jean has told me each of the last 2 days, that number gets a lot higher at times, but right now it's at 23. But still, that's a huge chunk of how people are getting to us. So making sure that you do a good job with Facebook and the Facebook posts that you put out every day, that's more important than maybe the quantity of posts. So that's why we decided to change that after consulting with the editors group. Okay, on to enterprise news. I'm going to actually let you do this one too, Jean, because this is the other big change from last year. And I should point out in the bottom right corner, because I hadn't mentioned this before, but the one with the little star next to it, you got to get your sports folks involved in this as well. Sports Enterprise counts this in 2017. Sports folks in newsrooms 23 to 29, they have to have one per quarter, and then the bigger newsrooms 30 and up have to have one every month. So it's imperative that you get your sports folks involved in the planning process for 1A.
And just, to explain that a little bit more too, just because that slide looks a little wonky, but you need to do one a week for, in general, and it's just one of those in a month has to be sports. So right. It's included within that.
Thank you for clarifying. That's a good point, yes.
Yeah, sorry, or one per quarter in the smallest
right.
for the large users. So what is enterprise news? So what's called in-depth, it's very similar. It's just that, as I said before, we really want to emphasize the enterprise part of it, that this isn't something that you're just reacting to, that it's something you're thinking about and doing some more work on. So it's compelling news. It's not rehashing of, a story. It's really taking something forward. So some of the differences this year. So we want to make sure that each of these has a digital layer. I talked about that already. We'll talk a little bit more about what digital layers are too. Packages have to have a social media component. This makes sense. And man, if you can, if you can preview something that's coming for the weekend on social, I think that's especially on Facebook, that's a great thing to do. And then packages must also include 6 of the better journalism tenets, and so that we would go through those. So it's just basically multiple sources. We used to say it's at least 2 sources, and people would say 2 sources is like a basic story. It's not in depth. And I absolutely agree with you. So, make sure that you have rich sources. I mean, just hugely important for these kinds of stories, as you know. Offers context, and that's another thing that we really look for with these deeper packages. Breaks new ground, includes background, explores the impact on readers. Always trying to keep in mind, how does this affect our readers? I mean, if we're going to spend a lot of time on a package, we want to make sure that it's rich for the readers. Answers new questions, compares and contrasts issues to other communities. So, really taking a look around you to see, what's valuable. Looking for solutions. Now, not every single one of them has to have all of these. Again, it's just 6 of these. So you don't always have to have solutions journalism, but it's certainly something that we need to be thinking about instead of just complaining about problems. I mean, really looking for those solutions. Having a proactive approach to storytelling, and so just really looking ahead instead of always looking behind, including voices from regular people. So just how does it affect me? Like, go out into the community and just talk to people.
And then on to Sports Enterprise real quickly. Like Jean said, this would just be 1 a quarter or 1 a month in your newsroom. But what a great way to make sure that you have a broad base of topics on your front page and getting sports folks involved. I've been in multiple newsrooms where they'll say, well, the sports guys do what they want to do, or they have their own section to fill. Listen, you've got a lot of folks who are big sports fans in your communities. Putting them out front with enterprise pieces instead of just rehashing games, that's an integral part of what your community and what you should be telling folks in your community about. So as part of 2017, 1 per quarter in the 23 through 29 and 1 a month for those above that. If you have questions with this, please feel free to reach out. This has to be topical, has to follow the same tenets that the news stories would have. So that's an important piece as well. Okay, back to ASFs, and this is something that we've done with Inner Circle in the past, and we kind of honed in on lists last year. But we'll get back to a broader ASF category this year. And you know what they are already, hopefully. I would hope all of you do. Non-traditional content presentation, basically breaking things down into smaller, more manageable chunks for readers. This isn't in place of that great Sunday centerpiece that you're going to write. This is either a quick follow instead of rehashing every single piece, or you don't have the manpower to do that, to stay on something every single day like maybe you should. And so instead you pull it off into small chunks that are manageable for folks to be able to absorb. This is one of my favorite examples. The folks in Canton, Ohio have done this every day on the front of their local page. Every single day in 2016, they took a different person from their community, from history, and they call it Starks Famous. And they basically just do a simple bio on that person, their connection to their county, and a quote. Hopefully have a headshot as well. It's something that they started as just part of a big package when they originally were trying to figure out who the 12 or 20 most important people from that community were. Instead, it blossomed into an entire year. And it's something that's manageable and gets a great reaction as well. When to use them, fact-heavy stuff, multiplayer stuff, explanation stories, visual stories as well. And then Jean, I'm going to go through quickly what is an ASF, but then I'm going to have you talk about what may not be. So Q&As, FAQs, lists, like I said, are an important piece of this. A list of quotes, by the numbers, bio boxes, day trip with things to do by the hour. I like that one. Election stuff, important issues, and then what's broken. That's a famous one that folks have used in the past as well. If you're looking what isn't an ASF, Jean, go through that just quickly. What's a layer instead of an ASF?
Right. So the thing is that we still have a separate category for digital tools or digital layers that you're putting into, some of those bigger packages. And some people are doing them really well with daily stories as well. So congratulations to the folks who are doing this really well. But you could argue that a video is a different way of telling a story. It absolutely is, but that's not what we're looking for here as far as Inner Circle. You could argue that, one of the digital timelines is it's a really rich, way of telling a story, and I agree with that. So I say absolutely knock yourself out on all of the digital tools. They'll just fit into a different category for Inner Circle. So I hope that's clear, and if anybody is confused about that, just let me know. But what we're looking for with these alternative story formats or these alternative story forms is more like what you would be writing in a narrative, but instead of that, because you don't have the beautiful or the need for that narrative, maybe you just are trying to convey information. You're gonna approach that information in a different way, or as an explainer with a Q&A or with a longer list or something like that. So you don't have to all be short and templated like the one that you're seeing here. They can be very, simply having bold lead-ins or having, approaching a story in different chunks, but just not those digital tools. So we'll take a look at what those are a little later.
Now, like we said, lists are no longer part of this. However, lists have been incorporated into ASFs. Quizzes are actually now considered a digital win tool, and lists are incorporated into ASFs. And you folks will be responsible, 23 through 29 will be responsible for one entertainment list per month. And the folks, as we get a little above that, 30 through 49 and 50 and above, will be responsible for 2 per month. These are the lists that you've already been doing. These are 5 great bike trails in Polk County from the Lakeland Ledger. Those types of pieces, they have a brief explainer, they have to have photos, or a photo at least. They can't be 5 things to do this weekend, because that's just like random things. So this is just the same local entertainment list that you've been writing. It has to be done, like I said, once per month from 23 through 29 and twice per month for 30 and up. And on to Instagram. And I'll actually handle that one real quick. The numbers just keep kind of growing on Instagram. It's supposed to grow by more than 15% this year. Other social media as a whole is supposed to be about 3%. If you're looking for a good example in terms of Instagram, the Northwest Florida Daily News has 12,000 followers, 12,500 followers on Instagram. And how do they do it? Yes, they have an incredible beachfront community that they can draw from. However, they also know their strengths. That's what they promote constantly on their Instagram page. It's one of those things that they take reader-contributed content, and as you can see on this picture right here, if you get a great photo and you've got a hashtag out there that you tell folks you'll repost from, that's a great way to not only market yourself, get people thinking about you, and get people to come to your Instagram account and follow it. Also, behind-the-scenes stuff is wonderful for Instagram. The archive stuff is awesome as well. I noticed that a couple of you are starting to do TBTs and other things like that on your Instagram pages. That's a great idea. And of course, great photojournalism fits in there as well. I'm not trying to take away from that, but try to get a good mixture of that. On to Pinterest. That would be you, Gene. I'm going to have you take that one.
Oh, no problem. Okay. So with Pinterest, some of you guys, I noticed that Instagram and Pinterest seem to be kind of where you guys are landing in terms of, what you're doing with these other social media collections. But Pinterest, also very visual, a lot like Instagram in that way. But this, a lot of times what really resonates with people on Pinterest is more the featuring content. So, but again, Pinterest is growing. A lot of people use Pinterest, and they're on there every day. 110 million Pinterest users. A lot of those are female. And then what we look for is just really the number of, somebody had a question yesterday about, is it the number of boards or the number of pins? And it's absolutely just the number of pins. And we don't, people can organize those pins into the boards that, that you think make the most sense for you in terms of what you're putting up there, but it's really about the number of pins. And then what kinds of things would you want to pin? Again, wedding planning is huge on Pinterest. So if you have local wedding photos, or even like a great special section coming out featuring those photos on there, is a great idea. User-generated content is great. Recipes, people are always looking for food ideas there, and you can also have almost news-year boards, so local news photos or sports photos. Archives, again, are very important. Anything having to do with food, so restaurants too. The announcement photos are kind of would be a really cute thing to have on there, and graduation photos, front page of the day, some people do, and then home and garden.
And on to Snapchat, obviously a very different user for the most part, but again, very fast growing, more than 200 million monthly active users. This is the interesting stat for me. The average user spends almost a half an hour a day on Snapchat. That's kind of interesting. We're just looking for the expected consistency. Send us something ahead of time so that we know and should be following your account. Obviously, everything disappears off Snapchat. That's part of the charm of it. Then, if we don't know that it's coming, we can't be gauging it. So please go ahead and reach out to us if you do have a Snapchat account that you plan on using for social media. What should you shoot? Well, sneak peeks, behind the scenes stuff. Again, weather does well. Newsroom festivities. If you have something in your newsroom that is playful and fun, that's great for it. And also community events as well. Okay, on to digital tools, and the numbers, as you see, have changed from quarterly to weekly because we have kind of ramped up digital tools a little bit. I'm going to have Jean go through them, but I will tell you that there's a full list that's available now at the Inner Circle Handbook. And as always, if you have a digital tool or something that you're trying, you're playing with, that you think is going to help you tell stories better, please feel free to reach out to us, and we would love to make sure that, we just need to know up front that this is something that doesn't, we either don't have a vendor that's already doing this, or it's not something that really meets the requirement. But please, we want you to experiment. You just have to kind of get in touch with us ahead of time.
Right, and so I think the thing, that's important here is that's really does support, just sort of the innovation that we're looking for, and the embracing our future, part of, what Bill Church has been talking about. So, really looking ahead on this. So digital tools, we were calling them, I think, digital wins. So, it's the same category really as last year in that sense. So, we want to encourage experimentation. And since then, you can obviously, I think the best thing to do is a mix. Sometimes even with our larger papers, we see people really heavily relying on maybe one or two. We just encourage you to try things. We know that, there's a lot going on in newsrooms, but this is really something that enriches readers, and it gives them what we're really looking for, in addition to obviously page views, but we really want people to interact with our content, and these tools give them a chance of experiencing a story in different ways. So what we look for is, selected digital tools were used, and again, I think that the most important thing is that you're trying new things with this, so it's not as important to me. Just let us know in advance if there's something that's not on the list. I mean, honestly, we just want to add to the list to give people ideas, so that's the main thing there. And then just that you're using the tools with the expected consistency. If you're struggling with that, reach out to us, look at the Inner Circle Handbook for ideas. In terms of that consistency, a lot of times, I like some of the papers have been doing, a juxtapose, which is that slider, and there's a way to do that through the night tools. Doing that every week with an old photo and then taking a new photo of what something looks like a scene in your town or something like that. So looking at the archive photos, people love that history. So using regular things like that is a way of ensuring that you can, you're meeting the expectations in terms of numbers. So, and individual tools may include, additional expectations.
And again, something that you bring up, Jean, part of the reason we want to hear ahead of time what you're doing is because it's moving so fast. We're getting so many new tools that are potentially, that group-wide we can be using. You folks are the one that are figuring out firsthand whether or not these are really applicable to the stories that we're telling. So that's why it's also for best practices. We really do appreciate finding out from you. Okay, on to the community outreach category, which is basically very similar. We just wanted to kind of broaden the horizons a little so that we can encompass more pieces of community outreach. One is the reader board. We've had the reader board for a few years. We think that folks who have taken part in these in the past. Some who had never done it before or hadn't in years have really talked about the reaction and how worthwhile they've been. This is a pretty simple process in terms of the reader board. You've got to meet once a month, and the editor or publisher has to write a column about the meeting. They also have to explain what specifically was discussed. It can't just be, hey, readers like our paper and they said so. It has to be, well, they liked our opinion page or they didn't like this. If they liked our election coverage or they didn't like that. And specific pieces of that should be the focus of that column. Your board should consist of a dozen members, but in the smaller ones, at least 6 folks should come aboard. You should get these people to commit to at least 3 meetings, and your board has to have a number of different interests involved. Please don't tell us that you talked only about education with, the superintendents of various school districts. That's a wonderful piece on a totally different plane, but that's not a reader advisory board. And on to town halls. Some folks have done this with tremendous success in the past. This is basically a meeting on a specific hot button issue. You have everybody out. The newspaper staff serves as moderators. I can tell you, I know the folks in Spartanburg did this for mental health issues earlier this year. It was a much bigger success than I think they thought it would be. And actually from it, a number of story ideas and continuing coverage was born. What we're looking for is just to know what the number is. I'm getting some feedback. If you're not on mute, please go ahead and mute yourself. Also, we need a link to that story, but we also now are adding an in-person piece, which is what you would be having there, the actual meeting, but a digital component as well. If I can't make this town hall meeting, are you going to Facebook Live it? Are you going to Scribble Live it? How can I also see it if I'm not there and not on hand? And how to host one? Well, you figure out an important topic in your community, you find a place to hold a meeting, you promote it through your news stories and on social media, maybe even some house ads, and then at the meeting, you have everybody sign in with an address or an email, and you've automatically got a source file for the future. You also take as many photos and, like I said, video as well. And finally, should I just keep going, Jean?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, public service, which basically we've tweaked a little bit. It was a community panel. It's essentially the same thing. We really wanted to broaden this so that if there was something that you felt was a really great public service outreach piece, that it would fall under this umbrella. So we basically have, and there is that meeting as a matter of fact, you recruit local officials, you serve as the moderator, you allow residents to ask questions on various things. Again, this has to have an in-person or digital component. These are similar pieces, but we just want to make sure that you have every opportunity to qualify whatever it is you're doing, reaching out into the community to fulfill this category. And some good ideas for this, again, promote your meeting in print, online, gather questions in advance through email and social media as well. That's always a great one. Now on to data reporting, and Jean will talk a little about that.
Actually, though,
yeah.
I always want to talk about the one you just talked about.
That's okay.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say, community outreach is so important to us, and if you look at the Inner Circle handbook, you'll kind of get a feel for it too. Kind of breezing through these to get you back to work, but listening to your community and finding new ways to do that is really important. If you have an idea for this that goes beyond, a single issue or a panel that's going to answer lots of, questions or a reader advisory board, if you have something different that you're doing, I think Rockford was doing some stuff where they were out in the community doing editorial boards and also listening to people and taking those on the road. What a fascinating idea. So, if you have something that you're doing that you're interested in, and again, Tim and I are always looking for best practices. So please let us know. I want this category to be really meaningful for your community, because learning about our communities and continuing to really listen to them is just a huge part of what we're going to be doing in the next year. So on to data reporting. So I don't think this category has changed at all. So if you're, I'm pretty sure we didn't change it. So if you're familiar with it, it's just what we did before. And the monthly expectations and the quarterly expectations are the smaller group there. So why do we have data journalism? I think all of you guys are doing this in some way. So I don't think this is news. It's really important for us to experiment and really learn from the numbers that are out there. They tell stories, and so looking at that is really important to us.
And what we look for is just a link or a PDF. I mean, this is, again, just a numbers game. We want to make sure that you're doing them. There's no specific thing that we're looking for, and some ideas. Like Jean said, most of you are doing this. For folks who are new to the company, you may not be. Salary databases, crimes by metro area or city, nonprofit executive compensation. I love that one. Also, state and local layoff statistics. I thought that one was great as well. So these are all important pieces that you can bring to your readership through the database ideas. And on that note, Jean, is there anything else that you want to talk about before we let these fine people go off to their workday?
No, I don't think so. I think one of the things that we've said in previous calls is if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll respond to you as soon as we can. So, and also just communicate with us early in the quarter. I think that's just really important. So, and we're really approachable people. See, there we are. So reach out if you have any questions.
That's right.
Anything else from you, Tim?
Well, I'm just going to say again that we'll send out a video, this video, as well as the slideshow to everyone after the presentation, so you can pass it along to folks in your newsroom if you think that they need a little brushing up on. And also, if, like she said, if you have questions, at any point, please feel free to reach out. We are here to work with you. Again, not punitive. I know sometimes it feels that way, but really that isn't the case. We're really just trying to stay on top of what everyone's doing and try to fulfill those goals that we're working toward in 2017. So thanks to everyone for listening. Thank you, Jean, for helping me all week.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys. Hi. What's that? Oh, that's okay. I don't mind at all. I was just worried. Hold on, I got John. I don't know what happened there. Yeah, no, no problem. I just was, to be honest, I mean, I just started. I asked for you a couple times. I was like, all right, let's just get started. She'll be on.